of course, we had some fun with it.
Shh, let's not give away everything yet. Let's build some suspense and control our narrative.
Hello, yes people. Welcome to another episode of the Yes Girls, where we, Claire
And Akumu.
say yes to doing, being, or learning something new and documenting our journeys.
And today we are pleased to announce that the Yes Girls have officially launched a brand new episode of their groundbreaking podcast, Yes Girls Podcast, for media toolkits,
Akumu,
contact.
That's not in the script.
It's in the press briefing I gave you 2 minutes before we started recording.
Surely I need more time than that to prepare.
Sometimes you don't have time to prepare. You have to get ahead of the situation and control your narrative.
Yikes, well, clearly I have a lot to learn.
It's okay, because luckily in this episode we are saying yes to
Doing public relations, aka PR. And in this day and age, everyone could do with a bit of PR, even us.
Any PR? Because I've heard it said that bad PR is good PR. Wait, do they say bad PR is still bad PR?
Let's find out.
Bad PR is still PR.
I'm not sure.
Bad? Fine. Okay.
Let's find out. Akumu, can you believe that we're already, not only are we on season 6, but we're towards the tail end of season 6. We've had so much amazing feedback from listeners and subscribers, and the reviews mean the world to us. One of our favorite yes people, Auntie Perpetua, said this about our switcheroo episode where we stepped into each other's shoes. I wasn't so sure where this was going at first, sweat emoji. I can confidently say I am down for this challenge, 100%. It seems to be a fun one and will likely allow me to extend grace to my circle, angel face emoji. Thank you at auntie_p_perpetua -- We truly appreciate you for listening. Maybe just choose a Instagram handle that's less complicated to read out on a podcast. We would love to know how this challenge goes for you once you say yes to it.
If you've not yet rated or reviewed us, what are you waiting for? We'll give you a minute to pause and go to your podcast player right now, wherever you're listening to us, and start the rating or the reviewing. And yes, you can find us on all major podcast platforms, but we do have a preference for AfriPods. Check them out. They have a wealth of African podcast content, and we just love them.
Give us a rating, 5 stars if you really like us, or even if you don't, just sneak us 5 stars. It'll make us happy. And let us know why you listen to the show or that episode. It really does help others to discover the show, and then they can forever be grateful to you for bringing a little more yes into their lives.
Anywho, time to get on with this episode. Let's meet our expert.
Today we have a wonderful expert, a true yes person, Njeri Wangarĩ. Let's hear from her so we can find out about all the different facets to her professional life and why she is indeed the perfect expert for this episode.
My name is Njeri Wangarĩ. I am a Kenyan poet, writer, storyteller, and communications consultant based in Nairobi. Better known as the Kenyan poet, I have over 15 years of experience in communications as a blogger, digital marketer, PR, and content strategist. When not writing or performing, I run Wangarĩ PR, a consultancy that helps brands tell their stories and shape their narratives.
So clearly we have the right expert. Now, what about the challenge?
As we said at the beginning of this season 6 is about seeing what we can do, be, or learn in a day. So we had just one day to sit down with Njeri, learn all about the importance of PR, and then set about fulfilling a challenge that she set us.
Now, I have some experience with PR, having watched and studied Shonda Rhimes' Scandal TV show, but more seriously, having worked at a PR firm some years back. So lots of what Njeri told us in our intro discussion made a lot of sense to me, especially when she spoke to us about how in these days, with the big word coming, preponderance.
Woo! That took some practice behind the scenes, people.
I had to do a British accent to say such a long word. Preponderance. If it's a Kenyan accent, it should be preponderance. Anyway, so she spoke to us about how these days, with the preponderance of social media, many online companies don't think they need to master the art of traditional PR. She also said that social media does not necessarily help your SEO rating. SEO is search engine optimization, or your Google hits. If you want to control your own narrative, the way you do it is through actual PR. That means going to journals, media houses, all that. And means getting articles out there that you have a say in and not being slandered or dragged through the mud without your say, or having things about you put out there that simply aren't true. That is what public relations is all about.
So our challenge here was to put together a press release for any news event or newsworthy happening of our choice. Of course, we had some fun with it.
Shh, let's not give away everything yet. Let's build some suspense and control our narrative. Right. So having gotten together with Njeri to discuss the challenge and get a briefing on, general PR or the intro, we chose to work on a press release, or rather she suggested it mainly because it's one huge aspect of PR that I have never tried before in my previous communication roles.
The challenge that I chose for Fiona and Claire for the Yes Girls podcast was to write a press release. Now, as a podcast run by hosts that are very switched on and have a huge social media presence, I felt that having an aspect of media relations and bringing that out in the form of a challenge of writing a press release was important because of the role that media plays in helping a brand tell their story and shape their narrative. Now, I structured the challenge around a newsworthy announcement that real or imagined that the Yes Girls podcast wanted to make. And I shared a template, and so I gave a few guidelines on what is the announcement that you want to make. Think of your target audience, and that helps to determine which media outlets you will think about. And I also challenge them to think big, not think local, think global. And as I mentioned, there was a template that I shared that they were able to use in sort of guiding them on the structure of a press release. And I also gave them a challenge of thinking about which media outlets, and particularly journalists, covering the beat. And in this case, the beat is sector or the topic that they're covering, which journalists would be interested in running that press release.
So Njeri broke down for us what a successful press release should look like. It should include the basic what, how, when, where, all that. And it should also clearly show what story we want to tell in the title for starters and in the first paragraph mainly, just as a summary. The entire press release is kind of like making the journal's job easier in seeing if the story is worth their while or to simply do their work for them, in quotes. So we needed to be telling them the story and not just the facts. We were told we could sensationalize it. And we could also put ourselves in the position of the reader. So if the reader would feel curious about knowing more, then it means the journalist would notice that and want to publish the story. That's basically the idea of a press release. So it helps to make it juicy.
And also, quotes are important, as are some statistics to ground it in reality and not make it just about made-up bold claims.
None of it should be about bold claims, at least not in reality.
But to be fair, for the purposes of this exercise, where it didn't need to be truthful, ours was.
Yes, fair. We had to have some fun with it, as we said earlier.
Next, you have to boil it down to the why, get a little deep into the crux of the issue. This should really explain why this story is so important.
After that, there's a necessity to look ahead. What's next? What does the future hold in this story you're saying? What can the reader get excited about, or what is a call to action? Then, of course, you're meant to leave some contacts and some description about what the author, the featured people, or the companies etc. are.
So we sat down for about an hour together and whacked out our own press release, speaking about an award that we did once apply for before we even launched the Yes Girls properly, but sadly didn't win. So in this fictional parallel PR universe of ours, we won. Let's just read you a few lines and extracts from it.
Try not to laugh too hard. For immediate release. I have to change my voice tone, right?
Yes. You sound like a newsreader.
Like a man or a woman?
Either.
For immediate release, Nairobi, 28th November 2023. Yes Girls Podcast, a unique multicultural Kenyan-based documentary-style podcast hosted by Akumu and Claire Baker, has won the second edition of the BBC World Service International Podcast Competition, beating out 10,000 other podcasts from across the world.
Open quotation marks. I'm mesmerized by the positive spirit and affirmative ethos of this show, and I believe its purpose is to change the world. Close quotation marks. Jay Shetty, head judge for the BBC World Service competition, exclaimed.
The Yes Girls podcast is already on season 6 and its 50th episode. 53rd? Oh, 54th. This one, I think. Oprah Winfrey, Barack Obama, Tim Ferriss, and Beyonce are already lined up as future guest experts for upcoming episodes.
So like we said, for the purposes of this exercise, it didn't all need to be true. We'll leave you to figure out what was true there and what is not. What mattered was the construction of the press release and whether we took on board all of the best practices. We then also created a list of journalists to target with this press release, and where we tripped up was that for such a global story, we focused a little too much on Kenyan journalists. Lessons learned, Njeri.
Speaking of Njeri, let's go back. I'm back to my normal voice. Speaking of Njeri, let's go back to her ratings. How did she rate us? How did we do in our fake thing?
But first, a quick break.
Want to say yes and don't know where to start? Then check out the Yes Girls podcast on all.
I didn't mean a commercial break, Akumu. I mean an actual interlude. Like we can go to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
We now want to hear from Njeri, our resident guest expert for this episode, on how we did. Take it away, Njeri.
For the challenge that I gave the Yes Girls podcast, my rating on how they fared is an 8. Now, the reason why I would give them a rating of 8 is due to various factors. The first is how they went about crafting the press release. There's a lot of creativity that went into it as I look at it. And as I mentioned, the press release was supposed to be either imagined or real. And I think just reading the headline, which reads, all-female Kenyan podcast wins groundbreaking BBC International Podcast Competition, beating out 10,000 other shows. That alone is very attention-grabbing. There's also the headline that they introduced that says, Yes Girls Podcast wins BBC's 100,000 prize to produce 2 seasons of their unique multicultural documentary style podcast. That to any journalist who receives an email with this as a headline, their curiosity will be piqued as to who are these Kenyan podcasters that have won such an international podcasting competition. Now, looking at how they went about the lead paragraph, which is usually the very first paragraph that you begin, that was very well done. It captured all the aspects of a new story. I think the four W's: the what, when, where, how, why. And then now you sort of focus on the rest of the aspects of the why and how in the rest of the paragraphs. I think some of the parts that I felt could have used a bit more work was on the quotes. One of the quotes that they have they selected from the head judge of the BBC World Service talking about the competition, I felt it needed a bit more information as to why what they were looking for and why the Yes Girls podcast was selected as winners. It didn't quite, as a head judge, he should have had a lot more to say about what was the vetting process, what are some of the entries that they saw, and how did they arrive at that. Because I mean, we're creative, it's a creative piece, it's imagined, and so you can really think broad. I also liked the paragraph that talks about how far the podcast has come, but I think it also needed to dwell more on the aspects of the podcast that made it win the award, demonstrating its ability to transcend cultural boundaries and exactly how it is uniting generations. Because from the first paragraph, that's the reason why they won the award. And so I felt the third paragraph needed to dwell a lot more on how exactly have they been doing that in the 50 episodes and the 6 seasons that they have so far produced. I liked the quote from the host, but I felt apart from speaking on the inspiration, it also needed to speak on how they went about bringing this diversity. Was it something that was very intentional, or did they just stumble upon it? Again, keep dwelling on why the podcast won and in which ways does the podcast demonstrate the diversity that coming from the judges, that coming from the podcast host, that message needs to keep being reiterated to the audience. I liked the second last paragraph, which talks about I look at the podcasting landscape, and I particularly liked this bit on they're giving the numbers on how only 1% of episodes, only 1% of podcasts in the world out of approximately 60,000 new podcasts make it. I liked that, but I also felt it was also good to bring it closer home, because this is an African or an African Kenyan podcast. And so there was a bit of statistics missing that could have sort of added a lot more flavor to that, looking at local statistics, both from an African as well as a Kenyan perspective. I really like the last paragraph because it spoke about, yes, that they have won this award. What are their future plans? This paragraph spoke to that. And I think the best line for me is the fact that their eyes are on the prize, and that is a Grammy Award. And that is really like a very, it's a moonshot. And I love that. And that's a great way of ending the press release. The profile of the Yes Girls was missing, apart from the profile of the co-hosts themselves. The podcast itself is a brand, and so should be able to stand out on its own. That was missing, and so we call it a boilerplate in PR. And that's basically a profile. If it was an organization, it's a profile of the organization beyond the founders. So the last beat should have had the profile of the podcast, and here the details of the profile should have been when it was began, what it's about, how many episodes has it produced so far, where can it be found, and who's the target audience. But over and above that, as I said, a rating of 8 is really good. There was a lot of creativity that was brought in. There's a lot of thinking around what the podcast is about, and who it serves, and what made it stand out, as well as what the future plans are. So well done, Fiona and Claire.
I don't think I've ever been so happy with an 8. I think can I remember the last time we had an 8, a strong 8? Anyway, not only did we really put our heads together in this Yes Challenge and work as a team like we never have before. Actually, we never have. But Njeri also really gave us solid feedback on our press release, which totally made sense. And if I ever need to put together any form of press release for a future podcast award, right?
Yeah, when we actually win.
I think we would feel confident going into that.
Me too. We really did work together, even completing each other's sentences at some points.
Soulmates.
Yeah, If you go to our Instagram or our YouTube, we'll definitely share some clips of us working and also the full press release, which you can find in this episode's description for you to admire or laugh at. We'll leave it to you to figure out what is real and what's not. I think 30% of it is real.
Including the Beyonce being in our next episode, yes.
Of course, yes. Beyonce, contact us. Slide into our DMs, please. Thank you. Crazy in love, yes. Uh-oh. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Yes Girls. Whether you're new to podcasts or new to this particular podcast, there is plenty more where that came from. There are old episodes for you to discover. Just scroll up or down on your podcast feed. There's a couple of years worth of content to catch up on with something for everyone.
And we'll be back in no time with a new episode where we say yes to another challenge based on your suggestions.
And in the meantime, let's interact on socials about what you've said yes to, or about your thoughts on this episode or any episode that struck a chord with you. We all started somewhere in our journey of saying yes, so why not tell us about yours? Or if you're struggling to take the first step, reach out. We always have a word of advice or encouragement or pointers to resources. We have 50 plus episodes worth of experience under our belt.
I love that. That's such a PR sentence. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, even Threads and X. Yeah, we don't play. The tag is at Yes Girls Podcast.
And you can find Njeri at Kenyan Poet on Instagram. She does so many wonderful things. And if you're lucky enough to catch a performance or event of hers, then tell us about it.
Maybe a poetry challenge coming soon.
We can reveal that in breaking news, Sampisha Productions and Snowball Industries produced this episode oh so wonderfully.
And we would contact all the journalists under the sun and tell them about Pedro Bryan, who composed our theme music, and contact our PR agent for more details on CAGS. Yeah, PR agent, if you're listening, we need those details quickly. CAGS designed our eternally loved logo.
And we would publicly relate to or have publicly platonic relations. Yeah, I need to work on that wording. Whatever. We're very grateful to Njeri the poet, a.k.a. Kenyan poet, a.k.a. Njeri Wangarĩ, our expert for this episode. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise.
And last but not least, thank you who are listening. We're always ready to go public with the story of how we met and how much we love you all.
Akumu, we don't have an expert in the studio with us this week to ask our favorite question to. So let's ambush one of our producers.
He's looking shocked.
What is something you have recently said yes to?
This year.
Yeah, and you have to come up to the mic. We're dragging you away from the
And it better be good.
Producer stand. What have you said yes to in this new year? Because we're recording this at the beginning of 2024.
I'm usually shy on the mic. Number one, growing out my hair.
And it's working well, just for those who can't see.
It's kind of working, kind of. Number two, exercising more, mostly in football though. So I'm trying to play football at least once a week.
Yeah. Future, what is it? Oliech.
No.
A future professional. So there's two things for the price of one. Hey.
Nice. We will not bother you for the next season.
But we'll keep checking in on how your hair growing and exercising exploits are going.
At least the hair we can see.
Yeah, the hair's coming out well.
Okay. We'll be back in your ears and on your podcast feeds in no time, dear Yes people. So stay tuned. But in the meantime, keep saying yes, and we certainly will.
We just can't help it because I'm Claire.
And I'm Akumu.
And together we are...
The Yes Girls! Cut!
Did the media get that?
Hey, Jess. Is the press release ready? Have you sent it? Everyone else, please contact our PR agent for more info and images.
Cut. Scandal.